So, good morning, friends. I once again welcome you back to this class of video lecture, and this is BA Part 1 English Literature, Paper 1 Poetry and Drama. And today we are going to take Alexander Pope's famous poem, An Essay on Man. So, friends, we have two major neoclassical poets in our course, Alexander Pope and John Dryden, and they both belong to the neoclassical era of British literature. So, neoclassical era is that era where poetry is taken as a craft, as a skill. So, I think we have discussed many times about the chief features of this particular school. So, Pope is recognized as the chief poet of the neoclassical era, neoclassical school of 18th century. Poets of this school tried to imitate the Roman and Greek classics. They laid great stress on clarity, moderation, and balance in verse as well as in the prose. So, the main focus is on stress, is on clarity, is on moderation, is on versification. Here, unlike the Romantic era, the stress is not on emotions, on sensitivity, on feelings, on compassion, on nature, on individuality. Here, the space is on those issues which bring out a sort of clarity, which bring out a sort of moderation, which bring out versification. So, the poetry should appear as a skilled art, as that art which requires ingenuity. Right? These poets adopted the heroic couplet as their chief metrical medium, as these poets believed in meter. Friends, romantic poetry is that poetry which does not believe in any sort of meter, rhythm, or rhyme, whereas the neoclassical poets believe in metrical patterns, and for their metrical patterns, they adopt the heroic couplet. So, we shall discuss this literary term heroic couplet in some other class. Most of Pope's poetry uses the heroic couplet. His poetry is characterized by wit, epigrammatic sharpness, epigrams. Epigrams are short, witty remarks. Bacon's epigrams are very famous, friends. You are supposed to memorize some of the well renowned, oft quoted epigrams written by Bacon. For example, I quote, reading makes a man perfect, writing an exact, and conference a ready man. Wives are young men's mistresses, companion for middle ages, and nurses for old age. Some books are to be tested, some are to be chewed, and some are to be swallowed and digested. These are the best composition and temperament is to have openness in fame and opinion, secrecy in habit, dissimulation for seasonable use, and power to fan if there be no remedy. Read not to confuse and discuss, but to weigh and consider. Taken from Off Studies. So these are some of the well quoted epigrams. Epigrams are short, witty remarks. Some of the statements which contain wit, which contain experience, which contain a sort of calculation of uh, worldly way of life, how to live life successfully, where there are, the stress is on pragmatic approach, right? These are called the epigrams, the short, witty remarks. In every cultural sphere, in every cultural domain, there has been a space, a place for such remarks. They are called, axioms, maxims, sayings. They are in Hindi, कहावतें, मुहावरे, लोकोक्तियाँ. They are called गागर में सागर. You can check. Is if you take the reference of Bihari. Some statements which contain truth, which contain a practical approach, pragmatic approach towards life, right? So the Pope's poetry is full of wit, is full of epigrammatic sharpness, satire. Yes, Pope writes satires and intellectual rather than emotional power. Yes, and it evokes intellectual powers. He is not an emotional poet like Wordsworth, Shelley, and Keats. He talks of intellectuality. He writes satires. He writes poetry for other persons of society. Pope's best known poems are the didactic essay on man, the satire, the Dunciad, and the mock heroic poem, The Rape of the Lock. This poem is a big poem which is prescribed in MA. He is perhaps the most quoted of English poets after Shakespeare. This is very terrific line which you have to keep in your mind. Alexander Pope is the second after Shakespeare whose lines are quoted the most. You know, beauty is in vain, their pretty eyes may roll. Charms strike the sight, but merit wins the soul. The very two famous lines from The Rape of the Lock. So you are supposed to memorize. I often say in my classes, what is the role of quotations? What is the significance of quotations? Right now, I come to this poem, An Essay on Man. This short poem, this extract, this precept, excerpt, excerpt, has been taken from the second epistle in Pope's long argumentative poem, An Essay on Man. The contradictions and paradoxes of man's nature and conditions are here treated. Friends, man is a bundle of contradictions and paradoxes, and human nature is the most unpredictable thing of this world. No one can predict about human nature. It has been an enigma, it has been a puzzle, it has been one of the most complicated part of life, human nature. How do we think? How do we react? How do we take the things? How do we take life? How do we grow? What are our priorities? And when do we get engaged in conflicts? How do we take our trials, tests, twists? What are our moral standards? What are our cultural parameters? And on the whole, what do we think about others? Number one. And number two, what do we think about ourselves? Even we do not know about ourselves. Man himself does not know about himself, and he claims to know about everything which is spread in the external world. So, which constitutes human nature? Contradictions and paradoxes. So, contradictions and paradoxes are a part and parcel of human nature, and these contradictions and paradoxes of man's nature have been treated in this poem, which is entitled as An Essay on Man. Right? So, it has been treated not in an impassioned or lyrical way, but in a rational or common sense manner. Yes, this human nature, which is very typical, the face cannot reveal the construction of mind. Shakespeare says in Macbeth, I again quote, face cannot reveal the construction of mind. Who knew that Duncan would be murdered by his own fellow, by his own soldier, Macbeth, and Desdemona would be murdered by her own husband, Othello. And what happens in Hamlet, we all know. This world is full of uncertainties. This real world which we live in is full of uncertainties. The present pandemic, COVID, is an evidence of it. Who knew in the beginning of 2020, January, that there would come this such hard times which will lock everything, which will lock all the human activities, right? So this is a world of uncertainties. Thomas Hardy says happiness is an occasional episode in the general drama of pain. We look before and after and pine for what is not. We look before and after and pine for what is not. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. So, friends, students, literature is full of such things. Literature is full of these things which deal with general human experiences. They tell of common pleasures, common pains, which are common to each and every individual. Every individual, irrespective of position, portfolio, power, irrespective of caste, color, creed, sex, whatever it is. There may be divisions in society on the basis of economic structure, cultural structure, social structure. But as far as human nature is concerned, the same human nature is found in every human being. Every human being suffers from pain, jealousy, envy, contradictions, conflicts, right? Every man is Hamlet sometimes, or that day, when we are not able to decide what to do, what not to do, to be or not to be. The famous Shakespearean soliloquy, to be or not to be, could be applied to every human being. What to do, what not to do. Right, friends? So, this terrific part of human life, maybe, right, for example, the contradictions and paradoxes, they are treated not in an emotional way, but the poet Pop treats them in an intellectual way, as a philosopher, and he wants to attain the truth. What is man? He wants to solve the mystery of human nature, which remains always unsolved, unlocked. Right? It is highly typical of the 18th century and of the poet. Thank you, friends.